Versus the gentlewoman from Georgia seek recognition.
Madam Speaker, I seek recognition for a question of personal privilege.
The chair has been made aware of a video basis for the gentlewoman's point of personal privilege. The gentlewoman from Georgia is recognized for 1 hour.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I would like to address the House and talk about how I've been mistreated as a freshman member of Congress and how crimes have been committed against me. They've been caught by the Capitol Police. They have been sent to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is refusing to prosecute these crimes. This is another example of the two-tiered justice system that we are living under right now under the Biden Department of Justice and Democrat leadership. Now, I'd like to go back to the beginning. These come on many news articles that have come out just on the news that this has happened to me. But I would like to remind the House that starting on February 4th, as a freshman member of Congress, I was kicked off committees by the Democrat majority and 11 of my Republican colleagues, unfortunately. So I serve here as a member of Congress without committees representing my district, but I've continued to work hard. I would also like to remind the House that on February 24th, after we had voted on the Equality Act and we had been debating back and forth, I had made many statements based on my beliefs, based on biblical truth, based on the beliefs of my district that I represent, that there are only two genders, male and female, and I stand firm on that. But yet it was my Democrat colleague across the hall placed a trans flag across the hall from my office to apparently maybe shame me for my vote. That had happened. Then, in response to that, I simply put up a sign outside my office responding to the flag. But it continued on. There was also another incident on June 29th where one of my Democrat colleagues screamed at me in the Cannon Tunnel, yelling and screaming at me for having a mask pulled down to my chin while I was talking on a Facebook Live video. So all of it was caught on video. And then that member then went to the speaker and claimed that I had attacked her and was able to get her office moved because apparently she claimed I was a threat to her where I was not. And she was given a security detail for her protection. Then even there were 73 Democrat colleagues introduced a resolution to expel me from Congress. Let me let you know what that says. It simply says that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene be and she hereby is expelled from the House of Representatives, giving no reason whatsoever for this resolution. But yet it is sponsored by one of my Democrat colleagues and co-sponsored by 73 other of my Democrat colleagues. Yet I've done nothing wrong. What else happened? Well, let's go a little further. I have over $100,000 in mask fines. And then when I went before the Ethics Committee on my House on these mask fines, 4 of the 5 Democrats on the House Ethics Committee also have their name on this resolution to expel me from Congress. I asked them to recuse themselves, and they refused. Therefore, that wasn't very fair. That's not fair treatment. I've even had my character attacked on the House floor, calling me horrendous names, horrible names, insulting names that aren't true about me at all, accusing me of things that I've never done, especially involving January 6th. Then there was even an effort recently to remove my name off of the ballot so that the people of my district couldn't even vote for me. And that came from a Democrat left-wing group that was funded by Democrats. I beat that in court. But all of this time, with all of these things happening, the media has promoted all of it. And because of this, I have had nearly 60 official death threats, 21 death threats, direct ones. And there's a man from New York currently on trial for threatening to kill me. 19 indirect threats. These are basically death wishes and harassment. And 8 sexually related threats. Individuals that have made threats of sexual assaults against myself and members of my family. I'll give you a few examples. In quotes, one person said, "I need to effing kill you." Another one said, "Marjorie Greene should find a bullet in her head." Another one said, "I can't wait till you get raped until you are dead." And another threat said, "I'll come see you and your children." And it went on and on. Now, all during this time, I have requested for protection, saying I need help, I need protection. I don't feel safe in these buildings. I don't feel safe at all. And all of that has been denied. But I've watched many of my colleagues across the aisle in the majority party receive a lot of protection and help. But I've gotten none. But just recently, I want to go through some things that happened. This sign seems to upset people so much, but it's a simple truth that is an example of what I believe based on my Christian faith, based on what the Bible says in Genesis, that God created us in his image, male and female, he created us. And this is also the majority belief of the people from Georgia's 14th district. This sign has been attacked repeatedly. As a matter of fact, it's been attacked 11 times. 9 times it's been vandalized, twice it's been stolen. But there's been a very specific series of attacks that's happened, and there's 7 of these. January 25th was the first report of 2022 was the first report of this type of destruction. And this is where, instead of people writing on it or stealing the sign, this was where someone decided to put a sticker on the sign with using Bible verses to attack my Christian faith and covering mostly the word female. You can take that one down, Taylor. Then the sign destruction continued. Each time we would replace it, the same thing would happen again. And I want to remind everyone, this is when our house offices were still closed to the public. So it was apparent that it was someone working, a staff member somewhere in our office building. So again, it showed up. Another sticker attacking my Christian faith, mostly over the word female. It happened on February 1st, 2022. Then on February 2nd, 2022. Then on February 22nd. You can put up another one, Taylor. And on February 28th. So each time the stickers were placed on the sign attacking my Christian faith, even if I wrote something back, it didn't matter. Another sticker would appear. You can go ahead and put another one up. And every single attack had to do with a Bible verse, and it was directed at me. Maybe even saying a sticker of a picture of Jesus that said, "I never knew you, MTG." That was on the previous one. So my staff and I, we had been communicating with the House Sergeant at Arms multiple times, but we were never getting a response. And I had requested cameras multiple times, but not getting any cameras. Until finally, the House Sergeant at Arms came to my office, and I talked to them out in the hallway and was very loud in the hallway about my need for surveillance cameras because I have nothing to hide. I'm perfectly fine with all the cameras in this building, all the cameras in Longworth where my office is. Myself and my staff have nothing to hide. But clearly there's other people that do. So I was demanding surveillance cameras because this entire time this had been going on at this point, it had been over a year. And the person that was continually attacking this sign is also attacking me and is angry at me. I did not know if this was a person that I got in the elevator with alone. I did not know if this person was someone that I may be on an escalator with, passing in the hallway, passing on the stairwell. I didn't know if this is a person that maybe personally knew me or someone I had never talked to in my life. But what I did know is the attacks kept coming. They would not stop. There was someone that worked in the building, and they clearly hated me. And I felt very unsafe. I felt my life was in danger, especially with the amount of death threats that I receive against myself and my family, and the complete refusal from the Sergeant-at-Arms leadership to provide me with any kind of security or protection. But finally, they put surveillance cameras up. And that was installed by the House Sergeant-at-Arms on March 4th. But guess what? Additional destruction continued. It happened again on March 10th. How about that? 6 days after the camera went up, the sign was attacked again. And of course, against my Christian faith, attacking my religion, and always making sure it was somewhere covering the word female on the sign, attacking my gender. So, but this time on March 10th, there happened to be a camera installed. So the suspect was caught on camera on March 10th, and again, he was caught on camera on March 11th. So 2 times in 1 week he was caught. But you know what? They didn't tell me who it was. They refused to tell me who this person was. They caught him on camera. They issued an arrest warrant to the Department of Justice at the U.S. Attorney's Office on March 15th for destruction of public or private property under the D.C. Code 22-3312.01. So they had caught him, they had it on video, knew who it was, and they still refused to tell me. No one would tell me who this person is. So I'm still living in fear of who is this person, why are they doing this, and are they possibly one of the people threatening my life? And then, to my extreme disappointment, I received a phone call from the U.S. Attorney's Office, who I thought for sure when I got on the phone, and it was a woman, I thought she might have some sympathy to what I'm going through. But she let me know that the U.S. Attorney's Office is declining to prosecute any kind of charges against this person, and they would not be following through, even though they have it on video, they know exactly who he is, and he's clearly broken the law. But they didn't want to prosecute it. And this is from our Department of Justice. The same Department of Justice that is not prosecuting people that are harassing our Supreme Court justices, breaking federal law. The same Department of Justice that is not keeping our borders safe. The same Department of Justice that is supposed to uphold all of our federal laws for our country, not stopping the fentanyl crisis and prosecuting. The same Department of Justice that isn't prosecuting crime apparently anywhere because crime is out of control. They don't care about crime here in this place, in Congress, in the Capitol complex, but they only care about the people that definitely came in and walked around on January 6th. If you're one of those people, they are prosecuting you to the hilt. And some of them are rotting in the D.C. jail now. If you're a Republican member of Congress and someone is stalking, harassing, attacking your gender, attacking your religion, they drop the charges. You see, that is a 2-tiered justice system. And I can't imagine why we're allowing that to happen. The problem here is all of the American people are paying their taxes. The Department of Justice is receiving their full budget, but the Department of Justice is only prosecuting crimes that matter to half the country. That's a 2-tier justice system. In order to have a justice system that is fair and good and one that the American people can trust, it should be a justice system that prosecutes crime just because it's a crime, not based on a political party, not based on does it match up with the ideas or policies they agree with, or the president that's in the White House or whoever's Speaker of the House or whoever's in leadership. It should matter that it's a crime and they should prosecute these crimes. But unfortunately, that's not happening. So I did find out who this person is, and it's reported in the news. I did find out that it's Representative Jake Auchincloss, Chief of Staff. His Chief of Staff is the person that has been consistently attacking the sign, targeting me, harassing me. This is a Chief of Staff. This isn't like a low-level staffer. This isn't an intern. This is a Chief of Staff that's had quite a career here, working in this institution, who knows better. As a matter of fact, he fully believes that you shouldn't harass anyone over their religion or their gender or their sex or any of these things. He definitely believes in hate crimes because previously, when he worked in another member's office, when he was chief of staff in that office, there was a man that yanked down their pride flag outside their office, yanked it down and mistreated it. Well, Tim Heisem, the chief of staff at Jake Auchincloss's office, who has been targeting, harassing me, was so offended at that action that he and the other staff chased that man down the hall. They wanted the Capitol Police to arrest him and prosecute him. They wanted him prosecuted. But yet, Tim Heisem, chief of staff for Jake Auchincloss, feels he's completely above the law, and he feels and says that my sign saying there's only two genders, male and female, he says it's a statement of hate, and therefore he's entitled to attacking me for it. You see, that is complete hypocrisy. That is not the way this works. Why is one above the other? It shouldn't be. I thought in America, aren't we all equal? Aren't all of our beliefs protected? Isn't our speech protected? Why is my religion under attack? Why is Christianity under attack? Why is my belief in defending women and girls' privacy rights in sports, why is that wrong? But yet it's okay for him to defend the pride flag and be angered and upset and want to arrest and prosecute someone when they attack it. Two-tier justice system. This is a man that I don't know. He doesn't know me. I didn't know who he was until a few weeks ago. I had no idea. For a time, I've been in my office building many times late at night. But I don't go there by myself anymore because of this man right here. I don't know if he's one of the death threats that have called my office. I don't know if he's one of the people that mail in disgusting, horrible things to me in my office. I don't know what else he would do because he feels he's above the law and beyond reproach. I also don't understand why his boss, Representative Jake Auchincloss, still has him employed. Because I'll tell you right now, if anyone in my office, if any of my staff were to do what he has been doing to another member of Congress, they would be fired. And my staff would never do it. Since early on in our term, when my colleague across the hall from me attacked me on Twitter by starting on my nameplate and turning the camera to herself where she planted the trans flag, no one in my office, none of my staff has touched her flag, nor would we, because we respect her freedom of speech and her right to have it there. We would not touch it. But that's not how I have been treated. I've been treated much differently. I've been attacked over and over and over and over. And then finally, when I got video surveillance cameras, the Capitol Police did a great job. They caught him, they issued a warrant for his arrest, and they sent it to the Department of Justice. But the Department of Justice doesn't care. Why? Probably because I'm a Republican. We don't have a Republican White House. We don't have a Republican-controlled Congress. So why should Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene matter? Apparently, I don't matter. My safety doesn't matter. And the beliefs of my district don't matter. Not to the Department of Justice. They have no interest in prosecuting Tim Heisem for attacking me 7 times, twice caught on video. Nope. They don't care because half of the country doesn't care to them. But let's go a little bit further. There's been more things that have happened. I mean, I feel like it's almost like high school mean girl behavior, but this is supposed to be Congress. Well, we also had a situation on June 16th, just last week. There was a certain film crew that works for Stephen Colbert, had been basically stalking me all day long, going throughout, following us around here. My staff was very helpful in putting me in the car and keeping me away from them. They ended up outside my office. My staff took me somewhere else so I didn't have to go there. But then now we find out that it was a certain Democrat member who's serving on the January 6th committee who let them in the buildings. And then when the Capitol Police threw him out, it also happened to be Congressman Jake Auchincloss and Tim Heisum's staff that let them back in late at night. And you know whose office they were going to? Mine, my office. So this is more behavior where I don't feel safe. I feel like my life is constantly threatened. I'm constantly harassed. And this is no way for anyone to have to do work here. This place should not be run like this. This shouldn't be allowed. Now, while the January 6th committee is currently accusing one of my colleagues, Representative Barry Loudermilk, of giving tours, which is a lie about him, they are lying about him and saying he did something he did not do. They at the same time were letting these people in our office buildings. We don't even know where all they went, but they know, and the Capitol Police know. They were allowing them to go everywhere as if they're doing some sort of insurrection. Why is that being allowed? Why do they get to have tours and free reign running all around the hallways and attacking members' offices? But then we get accused of something horrible? This is wrong. You know what people care about? People care about inflation. They can't afford groceries. Mothers can't find baby formula. Women can't find tampons. People can't afford gas. People are so upset about crime. People are so upset that no one cares that we even have a border. These are the things that people care about. They don't care about the petty, ridiculous garbage that happens in this place. But this is what we're dealing with because the Department of Justice will not prosecute any of these crimes. And it's all about politics. Aren't politics disgusting? I'm so sick and tired of politics. The whole reason why I ran for Congress is because I was upset that we're a nation in debt that we'll never be able to repay. And I have 3 children, and I hope to God I have grandchildren, and I don't know what's going to happen to their lives. I was upset because our economy is so fragile and at risk of crumbling. I was upset because our nation had been shut down over a virus, and we should have never been shut down. I was upset because I feel like we have the greatest country in the world, but it's this place that doesn't respect it. And the American people, I respect them far more than I respect this institution because the American people work their tails off. They pay their taxes. They balance their checkbooks, and they do everything they can to get by. But here, we play political games where chiefs of staffs who know better attack women over our religious beliefs and about the fact that we refuse to back down about there only being 2 genders. So what is that going to end up being? If that's a comment of hate, am I going to end up being locked away in jail somewhere? If so, you can put me in the dungeon and I'll still scream it from the pits of the dungeon of a jail because it's my belief and it's the truth. But women are under attack. Girls are under attack. We have no more rights because any man that decides that he calls himself a woman can invade our spaces. And any man that said when we stand up against it can attack us and the Department of Justice will do nothing about it. What kind of Congress is that? Aren't we supposed to be the body that legislates the laws and creates the budgets and funds the Department of Justice? We're supposed to be. But no, we're doing things like this. So I get to go here. I'm here at work this week. Tim Heisem is still chief of staff for Representative Jake Auchincloss. Representative Adam Schiff, who's currently on the January 6th committee right now, lying about Republicans who let in Stephen Colbert's Gang of Seven Democrat activist film crew, he still has his committees. I don't have committees. This isn't how people should be treated. This isn't right. And here's the other thing. It's not just me that feels this way. There are tens of millions of Americans, hundreds of millions of Americans that agree. They're tired of it, sick and tired of it. So while this institution is making a mockery of itself with its January 6th committee, the Department of Justice refused to prosecute all of the BLM rioters. No, their charges got dropped. And everyone that did come in here and riot, and by the way, I didn't like it either. I didn't like it at all. It scared me a lot. But those people, they've been charged. The Department of Justice will do that. But they won't prosecute this man, and his boss won't fire him. No, he gets to keep his job. Again, I want to remind you, if my staff, imagine, had attacked my colleague across the hall, had attacked her trans flag, I cannot even imagine what would happen to them. Not only would I have fired them, they would have been arrested, and they'd probably still be in jail. And their names and their lives and every detail of their life would be spread all over the news. People would know where they went to elementary school. They'd know their mom and dad. They'd definitely know their address, I'm sure. They'd have their phone number. They'd see every social media post, text message, or whatever. It would all be out there. But no, that's not how it works for us. And that's a two-tiered justice system. And the reason why I bring this up, is the way that I have been treated, mistreated really, since I have come here as a freshman member of Congress. And I want to remind everyone, I've never been arrested. I've always paid my taxes. I have not broken the law. I have done nothing wrong. It's the majority party that doesn't like my speech. That's it. So I've been kicked off committees. I've been routinely attacked. I have been lied about. My character has been completely destroyed, not only by people in here, but the media definitely helps them. I have so many death threats. I've had to pay for my own personal security. And now the Department of Justice will not prosecute someone when they are caught committing a crime against me, against my gender and my religion, attacking me over and over and over again. You know something? The way this place treats me is exactly the way conservatives, Republican voters, and many Americans feel treated. They feel mistreated because this place only cares about itself. This place cares about what happens here and is so disconnected to farmers who are about to go out of business, mothers that can't find baby formula, women that can't find feminine products. The border, all those towns, overrun. They try to help the people so much, they can't even help anymore. The crime that's increasing. The billions and billions of dollars that we're sending over for a proxy war with Russia and some other country to protect their borders, but we won't protect our own. The American people feel mistreated, the same way I feel mistreated. And it's completely wrong. It needs to change. You see, this is a place where we should all be working together. It shouldn't be hard for Republicans and Democrats to come up with a budget that serves our country. It shouldn't be hard for us to work together to fund a Department of Justice that prosecutes crimes in America, crimes against members of Congress. That should be something we care about. This shouldn't be complicated. But somehow it's complicated, and it's all complicated because of the disgusting industry called politics. And that needs to change. We're going to hit a point one day where the American people, they're so sick of us. They're sick of Congress. They're sick of what happens here. And we're going to hit a point one day where the American people, not only are they sick of us, but they just won't trust us anymore. And you want to know something? I don't blame them one single bit. Madam Speaker, I yield back my time.
The gentlelady yields back.